Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to
Hi.
the Human Design Foundations workshop. My name is Adele Smith, and I am your host for this evening. And for those of you who don't know me, I run an online health and wellness business through a company called Arbonne. I'm also a full-time parole officer in a men's prison. I'm a married mom of 2 boys, and I am a 4/6 emotional manifesting generator. And I love all things human design. And I am super excited to be here with Tasha Johnston from Love Light Beauty tonight because I stumbled upon human design almost 3 years ago, and I'm still learning new things to this day. I think it is absolutely fascinating and it has resonated with me so much. And so I just want to share it with everyone. It has just really helped me to get to know myself, trust myself. It's also helped me develop a better sense of compassion and understanding for my children and husband who drive me absolutely nuts sometimes, but now I kind of know a little bit why. And Tasha is a human design guide, Reiki master, hairstylist, reflexologist, and doula. And like, I am just so inspired by her and love to learn from her. And we really connected over our interest in human design. And I was so pumped when I found out just a few months ago that a human design guide, being Tasha, lived literally 5 minutes around the corner from me. But knowing my chart, that totally makes sense. So I've taken a Gates workshop with her, and she is just such a kind, nurturing individual. And I look forward to learning more from her tonight. So there's lots of you who are registered, but we're not able to attend the live. So hello, if you're watching the recording, but you will be getting the recording after the fact. Everyone is actually going to get the recording so they can go back, re-listen, take notes. So it's going to be a little bit more intimate here tonight, but I'm assuming that everyone has had a chance to get their charts. You got your chart with you, maybe even multiple charts in front of you, your kids, your partners, etc. So Tasha is going to go through her presentation, and then we'll do kind of like a Q&A at the end. But if you have kind of questions that maybe come up along the way, just pop them in the chat box, and then we can come back to them at the end when we do the Q&A session. So to get us started, I would love to know, and I'm not going to do an icebreaker because I absolutely hate those personally, but I would love to know your type, your authority, and your profile. So that should all be at the top of your chart. And I would also love to know how much you know about human design. If you're like a total newbie, maybe you know like a little bit, or you're really wanting to go kind of deeper here tonight. So why don't we start with Carly?
Sure. I am is this me? Yes. Generator. I'm a, what do you call it? 3/5. Is that how you say your profile?
Mhm.
Split am I supposed to say definition? What do you say? Type, profile,
Authority.
authority, emotional, solar plexus.
Okay,
And
and
I know zero about human design.
perfect. So this is a great place to start.
Yeah.
And Nicole. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I don't know anything either. And in fact, I just got on, I just saw your thing about the chart, so I haven't even looked at it yet, and I'm on my phone, so I
Okay.
had no idea what to expect tonight. So I can get it, but
Yep. Perfect.
okay.
So all you need to know is your date of birth and the time. And it's important if you have like the exact time to the minute. But if you kind of have an idea, whether it was like afternoon, evening, or maybe Tasha can speak to that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could pull it up there quickly on your phone if you like.
Yep.
But yeah, so newbie, so you'll just be absorbing tonight, and then you can look back
Yeah.
at your chart and kind of reapply.
Okay. I'll be back.
Perfect. And Anna, are you able to let us know your type?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I am a generator and authority is sacral and profile is 3/5. And I am also a newbie.
Awesome. And I think you had pulled up your kids' charts as well.
I have my kids and my husband.
Awesome. So what are your kids?
So my youngest is manifesting generator. Sorry, what was the other one you wanted? Profile is 1/3, and then the strategy is to respond.
Mhm.
Ben. My middle guy, Henry, is the generator, to respond, and 6/2.
Okay. And do you know their authorities?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. For Ben, he is emotional solar plexus. Henry is sacral, the same as me. And Leia is a manifester. Sorry. So you wanted the authority is splenic.
Oh.
And
Mhm.
4/6 or /6.
Okay, so Tasha is splenic and I am 4/6. So that's kind of cool when you can, you're the same as somebody else and you can kind of relate. So yeah, thank you for sharing. And I know, Anna, you are pretty new to human design. So
Yeah.
that's very exciting tonight. So yeah, I am not going to take up too much more time. I'm going to hand it over to Tasha to let her do her thing and help us dive into the basics of human design. So I am going to just make Tasha the host so she can share her screen with us. And I'm going to mute myself.
Alrighty. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight, whether you're watching live or you are watching the recording. I'm very excited to have you all here. Was really pumped when Adele and I connected and she initiated, or as you're going to find out about projectors, she invited me to kind of collaborate and talk a little bit more about human design, and really kind of was the inspiration for like getting this whole workshop together in the first place. So thank you, Adele, for that. It's been really good for me. I have a 11-week-old daughter, and so like getting back into this right now feels really, really aligned, especially like just trying to learn more about her and understand her design, but also kind of gearing the work that I do with human design a little bit more towards like a parenting perspective, which has been something that I've been called to do since I learned about human design, or pretty quickly after I did learn about human design. But it kind of felt weird when I wasn't a mom already myself to be sharing in that kind of a way, which was some of my own conditioning and feelings that I felt like I wasn't allowed to be in this space talking about human design from a parenting perspective when I wasn't a parent yet. And now that I am, it's just re-sparked that interest and passion, and I've kind of dove in a pretty deep way. So I am a 3/5 splenic, you can kind of say it either way, projector. Human design came into my life in 2020. I took a self-love coaching course during all the lockdowns and stuff, as really just kind of something to do and a way to like kind of work on myself and learn how to support my clients in kind of like a different modality. And one of the mandatory workshops that we did during the coaching course was about human design. And the day that we did that workshop, I remember it so clearly. It was a Sunday. I was getting a tattoo that afternoon, but the workshop was in the morning. And so my sister had to listen to me talking about human design the whole way to the appointment. and really kind of didn't have a lot of interest at the time, but I'm really happy that she is actually, she's not here live with us, but she's going to watch the recording because she has 3 boys at home, and I think is kind of interested more now in this, like just kind of understanding the boys and how to support them in their growth and development. But I came out of the class and literally was like vibrating, just completely fascinated and lit up just learning about this modality, because I'd been into like astrology and I already had my Reiki training. So I was familiar with the chakras, and just kind of always have been so fascinated with any like self-discovery system, learning about how I operate and what kind of makes me tick has just always been like something that I've been interested in, even as a child. And being a projector, one of the biggest gifts that I've ever received through human design was just kind of feeling really like seen and understood in this way that like my parents hadn't done, society hadn't done, and no other system really had done for me that human design did. So we're going to learn more in a little bit about projectors, but basically, like I'm not meant to operate like in a way that most of the world is meant to operate. And so learning about that, and just that I'm not meant to work a 9 to 5. I'm meant to work more like, 3 hours at a time. I'm meant to have lots of rest, go to bed early, and like get rid of other people's energy before I go to sleep. And just like that is the tip of the iceberg. And really gave me permission to be myself. And to me, that is like such a gift that hopefully someday we won't need a system to feel like we have permission to just be ourselves. But right now, unfortunately, we kind of do live in a world where we need these systems to help us just embrace our uniqueness. So on my website, which is lovelightbeauty.ca, there I've blogged periodically when I feel inspired to. So I did write a blog about human design. So if that is of any interest to you, you can go check it out. Human design is a system created by a man named Ra Uru Hu, following a mystical experience. And Ra Uru Hu was actually Canadian, which I thought was kind of cool. So he was in Ibiza, Spain, and basically like for days upon days had this like download and downloaded the whole system. It all sounds kind of crazy, but that is how human design came to be. So it's known as like a holistic self-knowledge system, and is a combination of astrology, I Ching, Kabbalah, Lost Veneering, the chakra system, and Vedic philosophy. So that's just like a little tiny bit about what it is, but it's just a combination of all these other systems that have been around for a long time. And for me, like I've been into astrology since I was a kid. And like there's been certain parts that have resonated and that I've felt like I've really understood, but then certain things that are just like so big and over my head, where human design, although it is like can be very complex and layered, I guess it just like digested easily for me. Like I had an easy understanding of it. So that was kind of part of the inspiration to then. So after I took the workshop in 2020, the woman who taught that workshop, her name was Kira Doyle. I took human design reader training with her. So like I'm officially a like human design, I call it guide. I think it's like a projector thing because we're meant to be here to like help guide other people. So reader is like a title that some people use, but I tend to like the word guide. So since then I've done like one-on-one readings, I've done a few workshops, and I'm just constantly like learning and adding to my human design toolbox. So I know that Adele sent you this link earlier, but if you're watching the recording, jovianarchive.com is where you can get your free chart. There's actually lots of chart generating websites now, and I would actually suggest checking out. So my teacher's website is Meeting Your Magic. And so she has a chart generating kind of section on her chart. So you would just go to like get your free chart. And I really like hers because she includes some like extra things that like some of the other systems don't include. So like Jovian Archive is now owned by Ra Aruhu's family. So like he's passed away, but like his family has continued like his legacy and keeps the website and the training kind of going. So that's like the original, but what's happened in human design is a lot of people and readers have like created their own interpretations of things and like went in different directions. And if you really dive deep into the human design world, you might stumble across the gene keys, which is also like an interpretation of the 64 gates in human design. So lots of people have kind of like taken it and put their own spin on it. So my teacher's website, you can find some really cool information that I'm really loving kind of learning more about right now. And it's some of the PHS stuff. So it's the PHS stands for Primary Health System. And in that we all have a certain way that we digest the best, whether that is like food or information. And we all have like a specific environment that we are kind of like meant to thrive in. So there's like caves and mountains and valleys and shores, and that information is just kind of fascinating. And the one kind of disclosure is it is based on your exact birth time. So some people that don't know their exact time, it can be a little bit tricky. If it's like even off by a few minutes, that can change. So I think before we even dive in more, one of the most important things to remember about human design is that it is an experiment. So you're meant to learn this information and kind of play around and see how it feels to you. Experiment with living by your type and your strategy and your authority and stuff like that. And just know that you're not meant to take any of this as like black and white or really linear information. You're meant to kind of like take it or digest it, take what feels good and kind of leave the rest. So definitely recommend that with the PHS system. And if you learn about your environment and your digestion and you play around with that and it doesn't feel right at all, could be that your birth time is off even by a couple minutes. So if you want to check out your chart on Kira's website, then she just kind of offers a little bit more information. She doesn't break it down, but then that's where good old Google comes in and you can kind of start looking everything up. So, okay. So tonight what we're going to cover is your type, your strategy, and your authority. And those three things are what I call in human design the big three. So if you're familiar with astrology, they talk about the big three being your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign. So I've kind of like adapted that to human design, and your type, strategy, and authority is what we're going to cover tonight. And for what they say is like, if you learn nothing else about human design except for your type, strategy, and authority, like that in itself can literally just cause huge magnetism in your life and keep you in alignment with the way that you're meant to operate. So we're going to start out with generators because generators make up about 70% of the population, 35% being pure generators, and then 35% being manifesting generators, which manifesting generators are like a hybrid of manifestors and generators. So generators are the energy makers of the world. So some of this, especially if you're really new to human design, when you look at your body graph, so like this is just kind of the shapes of the body graph. This square right here, so the second square from the bottom, that is called the sacral. And so these are the 9 energy centers. They're either colored in or white. And we're not going to go really into energy centers tonight, just because with the 3 things that I'm going to cover, it's a lot of information. So if you're really lit up and interested, then, you know, I would encourage you to maybe book a reading. We could go deeper into your energy centers, what it means to be open, defined, what your gates and channels. There's so many layers. But like take some time to digest your type, your strategy, and authority. But you're going to hear me talk about the word sacral quite a bit, especially generators and manifesting generators. So I feel like it's beneficial to know that this is your sacral, and our sacral center is it's where life force energy comes from. So what makes you guys generators is that you have the definition in your sacral. So that means that it is a colored in energy center, and you have consistent access to life force energy all the time. So often that means that like you will wake up in the morning with a full tank of gas, ready to like go and take on the day, and you're just like you're ready to work. You have very magnetic energy, and you're very passionate beings, and you're here to work. You have dedication and a focused mindset for your passions and the potential for mastery. So oftentimes generators, when they are living in alignment, they will find a job that they absolutely love and feel passionate about, and probably will do it for their entire life. There are generators who are not living in alignment and are doing work that does not light them up and make them feel passionate. And that can then kind of turn into like jumping around from job to job to like find that thing that makes you feel that passion. So finding the right work is really important for you, because you are like meant to have all of this energy that you're meant to use in the world for good things, and like do things that make you feel really lit up and passionate. It's just so important to find something that feels like the right work for you in this lifetime. So you're designed to lead a happy, fulfilling life. And when you allow life to show up for you, as opposed to going out and trying to make life happen. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that with this strategy, which is to respond. So the next energy type we're going to talk about is the manifesting generators. So these are 30% of the population. And you might hear me say the word MG. It's just kind of like the short form, or Manny Gen or Man Gens. So manifesting generators have quick energy and can be easily distracted. So I've heard manifesting generators kind of described as like, you almost feel like you have ADHD, or maybe people have asked you like, do you have ADHD? Because you're just bouncing around, like you're like an Energizer bunny that's like doing this and then that and this and that. And it to other people may feel like you're like not completing a task, or you're just like all over the place. But to you, that just feels natural. And in your head, it's like organized chaos. So you're powerful creators and meant to live a non-linear path and show the world that you do not need to be linear to be successful. So manifesting generators are multi-passionate beings. So just like with generators that typically will find what they're passionate about and do it for their whole career, manifesting generators will oftentimes bounce around from job to job. And Adele, when we did the live last week, was talking, because she's a manifesting generator, about how when she was a kid, she did so many different like sports. Like, was it like skating and gymnastics and piano, like all these different things. And just manifesting generators get bored really easily. And when they're done with something, they're just ready to move on to something else. So like, because I feel so passionate about this, I want to start talking about like kids who are manifesting generators right now. But you could like really easily think about how you could apply that to like if you have a manifesting generator child and they sign up for swimming lessons, and halfway through the summer they're so over swimming lessons and just like don't want to go anymore. But you're like, but at the beginning of the summer you were so excited and you wanted to go, and then they're just like, well, yeah, now I don't want to. So like learning that about them, as you know, like this is their unique way of being in the world, but like we want them to, like, when you start something, you finish it. like, why are you wanting to quit halfway through, is kind of like an example of how, as parents, we could easily condition our children to be like what we think that they are, instead of being like, oh, it's annoying because I paid for the whole summer, but if they're done with it, I'm just going to fight with them every single week to go to swimming lessons, when really they're done going to swimming lessons and I just need to roll with that. So manifesting generators often have different careers, jobs, interests, like, and will bounce around often. And life is supposed to be fun, and you are here to teach that to the world. So, kind of not taking life so seriously and being okay with like bouncing around a little bit. So the signature, I guess one thing to note for both generators and manifesting generators is it is extremely important for you, if you want a good night's sleep, to use up all your energy before you go to bed. So because you wake up with all this energy in your sacral, it's really important to like dump that energy out throughout the day. So say you are a generator and you end up like you have a job where maybe you spent all day in meetings and you were sitting at a desk and you just like didn't have the opportunity to get up and like go for a walk or just like move your body around or anything except for these meetings. That night, you're probably going to be very unsettled and really restless and have a hard time sleeping. Where if you're able to like, okay, I know I was in these meetings all day, which means like I just, and you probably can feel it in your body. I feel like human design is a lot about like teaching us to like tap into our bodies. And we're going to talk more about that when we talk about your authority, because none of us are meant to make decisions from our head. We have an energy center in our body that is the part of our body where we're meant to make decisions from. And so if we are living more in our bodies, then our body would tell us, if we're a generator, like you need to move or else you're just not going to sleep. You have too much energy. And as far as like children go, they just like trying to force them to go to bed when they haven't used up all that energy throughout the day is probably going to be a big fight. So just learning that it's really important to like use up all that energy before you go to bed is just going to help you to sleep better. And if we're looking at your children's charts, then it's going to help your children to, or help you to not fight with your children as much when it comes to bedtime. What else do I have here? The other thing, okay, maybe I'll talk about that with not responding. Generators and manifesting generators. So we all have a signature and a not self theme. And this is kind of like, I like to think of it as being like the alignment scale. So if on one end of the alignment scale, you have your signature, on the other side, you have your not self theme. And you can kind of check in with yourself like daily, multiple times during the day, like, where am I on the alignment scale? Am I feeling satisfied, which is the signature for generators and manifesting generators, or am I feeling frustrated? So that's a way to kind of check in with how you're feeling at the time, because if you are kind of in frustration and like feeling really frustrated with something, there's a good chance that you're not following your type, using your strategy and using your authority to make decisions. Then you end up in that not self theme of frustration. Or if you're going to bed at night feeling just like really satisfied with like how the day went or your life in general, that's kind of a sign of like you're living in alignment with the way that you're meant to show up in the world. So just a really really cool way to like check in with yourself, and kind of is a true tell sign that you're living your human design. Another important thing to remember for the manifesting generators is that it is okay to pivot. So if you are kind of like working on something and you think that like you're on a roll and this is exactly what you're meant to be doing, and then suddenly like you have a new idea, or you get kind of bored with whatever you were rolling with, like it's okay to pivot. And just like I said with being a projector and giving myself permission to like rest more, not work the 9 to 5 and not kind of hustle, because we've said, like I've talked about how the generators make up 70% of the population. That means that you often hear the words like, go out and get it, chase your dreams, hustle. That's not for me as a projector, and for the manifestors and reflectors. We don't have that sacral definition. We don't have access to life force energy. So we're actually not meant to go out and hustle and grind and be chasing things all the time. We're meant to have lots of rest, lots of time to be introspective, lots of time to just kind of like decompress the energy that we're picking up from all you generators all day, because that can really affect us and actually cause like different illnesses and just make us feel unwell. So yeah, it's just really important to remember that, or I was going with permission. So for me, the permission was I can rest. I don't have to work 9 to 5. I don't have to try and hustle and grind. For manifesting generators, giving yourself permission to pivot is huge. And for generators and manifesting generators, it's important to remember that just because you have all of this energy doesn't mean that you have to say yes to everything. So like, you know, you might feel like, oh, I have the energy, and if someone is asking for your help, you feel like you should because you physically feel like you could. But it's important to like be responding yes to things that really feel in alignment for yourself, not just because you do have access to that energy that you could be giving to others. You need to give yourself full permission to decide what is a yes and what is a no. So on that note, the strategy for manifesting generators and pure generators is to respond. So there's a mechanism inside of you that assists you in responding, which is your sacral center. So that center that I was talking about that is full of energy, that's the center that you tap into when you're making decisions. Some of you have solar plexus authority. So that we're going to get a little bit more into that, but that's all about using like your emotions to make decisions. But you also at the same time are meant to use your sacral. So if your body is responding with a yes, you often will feel like kind of like your shoulders drop and like your heart opens. So you feel this like chest opening, like yes, like you almost want to lean forward. And if something feels like a no, like, you know how people will sit like this or kind of like this, like that is like an energetic way of us like shutting our energy field off, because like we're just, you know, if you're having conversation, you're just protecting yourself from other people. Or if something feels like a no, like you almost just want to retreat into yourself. So just being mindful of that and aware of it, and like kind of noticing like if someone asks me if I want to do something, am I like almost like jumping forward, like, yeah, I want to do that, or being like, oh no. So kind of just having that awareness is really cool. So something that's very important for you is yes or no questions. So because you have that sacral center and it kind of answers with a yes or a no, or it also makes sacral noises, which is uh-huh and uh-uh. It's really important for yes or no questions. So like open-ended questions usually are not good for generator and manifesting generator types. So if I was to say, where do you want to go for dinner tonight? You might just be like, oh God, like, I don't know. But if I was like, hey, do you feel like going out for sushi tonight? You might be like, yeah, I do, or no, I don't. So like, there's a huge difference between yes or no questions and open-ended questions. And my husband is a generator, and so is my daughter. So now that I know this about them, it gives me the ability to be like, well, it was funny to learn about this, because I realized like, no wonder every time I ask Josh, like, what do you want for dinner tonight? He says, either I don't know, or I don't care, or I'm not picky. And I'm just like, oh my God, I don't want to make all the decisions. Why do I have to decide every night? So then if I'm like, okay, these are the ingredients we have in the fridge, this is what I can make with what we have. And I give him options. So like this or that options work good too. It's like, do you want tacos or pizza? Do you want spaghetti or hamburgers? Like, then being able to choose, like, does spaghetti feel good? Does hamburgers feel good? But when you have too many options, it's just like overwhelming. And that's just not how your sacral communicates with you. One important thing to know that I found very interesting was that you often will hear children say uh-huh and uh-uh. And commonly, parents will correct them and tell them that they're not words. So it's like, don't say uh-huh isn't a word, say yes or say no. So that, and like I remember hearing adults say that. My mom, my dad, and my sister are all manifesting generators, so like my parents probably said it to my sister, probably even me, but for me, like, it didn't matter as much because that's not my authority. But like, think about the conditioning that happens to children at like a really young age, probably even like 3 or 4, that they're being told like to use your words, but really like those sounds are sacral noises. Like that is the most natural kind of like primal sound that the body will make. Especially if you're a generator or manifesting generator, it's like kind of this like really sacred special part of you that it's important to be connected to. So you are designed to see things outside of yourself and then respond to them rather than going out and initiating. So that's where the responding comes from and how you can apply your strategy. So basically what this means is like, if you have an idea and you just go out and try and initiate it and start like getting things rolling, putting the pieces together, there's a good chance that like it maybe isn't going to work out the way that you expected, or it's taking a long time, or it just doesn't quite feel right because you're trying to initiate a process. Where if you see something outside of you, then you get to respond to it. So like if someone offers or brings up like a proposal of some kind, that's something you can respond to. If one of my friends, like she creates jewelry. So if she sees, say online somewhere, like this new design, or she's watching TV and someone has a necklace on that she thinks is really cool, that's like a way for her to see inspiration and respond to it. So you really need to see things outside of yourself. Like maybe it's on billboards, commercials, like in movies. Maybe you see another person out in public. If you're trying to initiate, then you may find that you end up in your not self theme of frustration. Okay, on to projectors. So we've talked about generators and manifesting generators, which are energy types. And then we have 3 more types, and they are all non-energy types. So projectors make up 21% of the world's population, here to act as guides and leaders for the world around you. You have the ability to see things in a way that others cannot. So projectors have this really penetrating aura, and it can be really intense. And like my teacher described it as being kind of like pokey. So like if you are not inviting a projector to share their information or their opinion or their wisdom with you, it often is kind of like, it feels like really intense and just kind of like they're like poking at your buttons, and that can come across as not feeling very well at all if it's like unsolicited advice. So that's why projectors need to be invited to share. Projectors are constantly absorbing other people's energy. So oftentimes projectors like are talked about as like kind of seeing and understanding other people better than they understand themselves, because they have this ability to just like see other people so clearly. Oftentimes like seeing themselves they can kind of get lost in that. And the greatest desire of a projector is to be recognized for their unique gifts and share their guidance with the world. So because projectors see other people so clearly, what we desire the most is just to be seen. And this was another thing for me learning about human design. Kind of gave me permission to not view being seen as like being conceited or being really into myself. And I remember I remember very clearly as a child, some of the adults, specifically some of the adult women in my life, have said to me, "You're so into yourself," or you like, "You're always looking at yourself in the mirror," or, like just almost like shaming me for like for loving myself and wanting to be seen. And so when I realized that, it was just like, wow, like I wanted to be seen so badly by others. And one of the most important things for projectors is like, before a projector can be seen by others, they need to really see themselves. So like other people cannot um kind of acknowledge my gifts and talents if I don't acknowledge them first. Or like they can acknowledge them all they want, but if I'm feeling shame or just um like a lack of self-confidence in that stuff, then like I can't see myself. Therefore, if other people are seeing me, I kind of like don't want anything to do with it. So it was like at this really young age, I was just trying to like see myself for like my talents and gifts and what I had to offer, but was like kind of being shamed and told that I was like too into myself, or I was selfish, or I was conceited. And like the programming and conditioning that can happen at such a young age is just like, it's insane to me. Why now, as a 30, almost 33-year-old adult, I'm doing all this work to like heal from what I had picked up on throughout the years. And most people can like tell a story that's very similar, like an adult in your life, kind of conditioning you to be a certain way that just didn't feel right to you. And sometimes it takes becoming an adult to learn that no, that's not the way that I'm meant to operate. So for projectors, it's vital for their health to prioritize having lots of rest and not working the typical 9 to 5 job. And my version of experimenting with that was, because I am a hairstylist, which is very physically demanding. But I also do human design readings, and I do Reiki and reflexology. I kind of, for a little while, and would like to eventually get back to this because it feels the best, kind of split my days up in half. So I might work the morning doing hair, but then in the afternoon, I do these other services that light me up so much they don't really feel like work. So projectors are kind of meant to work like maybe 3 hour spurts at a time. So that's why I feel like it worked really well to just do like 3 hours of hair and then have the rest of the day doing this other thing that didn't feel like work. So if you're a projector and there's like, what I like to think of is like, even if you're in a job that you do work 9 to 5, out of the day, is there parts of your job that really feel like work, that are like very taxing and hard? And then are there parts of your day that feel like they really light you up and you enjoy? So being able to kind of like split the day up a little bit so that you're not doing work all the time can be really beneficial. Or maybe it's time to kind of look at like, does your job light you up? Are you loving what you're doing? Or is it time to maybe experiment with a job that, like a lot of people that work online, like from their phones and have online businesses, oftentimes have like a lot more flexibility in their lives and could work only 3 hours out of the day. And when projectors do prioritize having lots of rest and not working as much, then when they are doing those 3 hour spurts of work, oftentimes they're really like getting a lot accomplished in those 3 hours because they're living in alignment with their type, giving themselves lots of rest, and then being really productive in those few hours. So the job as a projector is self-recognition, which I kind of talked about a little bit with like seeing yourself first, and embodiment. So doing what you love and watching opportunities, doors, and invitations open up for you. So kind of like walking the walk. So for projectors at bedtime, it's really important to go to bed early. So generators need to like use up all their energy and basically like kind of fall into bed exhausted, and usually will fall asleep really quickly. Projectors need to like go into bed like maybe half an hour or an hour before they're like they really want to be asleep. Maybe do some journaling to kind of like just decompress from the day. For me, and like this drives my husband crazy because like he just wants to go into bed and just go to bed. I want the light on. I want to read for a little bit. And he like complains about the light being on because he wants to just go to sleep. And I was like, I need that time to read, even if it's only for 15 minutes. What it does for me is like shift my brain from like thinking about my to-do list and stuff. And it just like distracts me into like whatever book I'm reading for 15 minutes to then be able to just fall asleep. So it's a little bit harder now having a newborn, but when I was able to experiment with this a little bit more, I'd be like, okay, if I want to be asleep by like 9:30, I'm going in at 9. That half an hour is mine. You're not allowed to tell me to turn the light off because I need that time. Something that can be very controversial in human design. And I know all of you who are live here, well, we're not sure about Nicole, but the rest of you gals are generator types, but maybe you have projector husbands or partners. And this is like, I don't even want to say it because it's very controversial, but it makes sense. Some projectors sleep separately from their generator partners. And for some people, it's like, oh my God, that's so weird. Like, what would that do to a marriage and a relationship? And what I've experimented with is that like my husband just would not hear tell of that. Like that would be weird for him. He likes me in the bed beside him. When he goes away, like if he's hunting or at times he's like worked away from home or went on a fishing trip with the guys and I get the bed to myself, I sleep amazing. Because I have that open sacral. He has the defined sacral. So I'm just like getting energy from him all night long. Like I'm just constantly receiving his energy when I want to just be sleeping. But what we've also experimented with is we have a king size bed. And so, you know, when we go into bed, like maybe we'll like be closer in the middle for a while, like talking, cuddling, like whatever. And then when it's time to like actually go to sleep, we both like roll over and there's like separation in the bed. So whether it's like maybe there's like a pillow in between us that we like wrap our arms around or something, but like almost just like pulling my energy over a little bit to kind of be in my own space and like none of our body parts are touching. Like it feels like I'm in my own single bed and he's in his own single bed. I've found has been beneficial to just like kind of bring my own energy in. So that's something that if you're a projector, you could kind of experiment with. And so I talked about the alignment scale for generators and manifesting generators. And for projectors, the alignment scale goes from success to bitterness. So when you go to bed at night, are you feeling really successful and just like lit up? I went on my Instagram last week and did a story. We'd done an Instagram live last Thursday and then Friday morning. I'd been up feeding my daughter early, but like I just felt so good when I woke up the next morning after we had done this live call and I've been talking about human design that I like got up early, I showered, I spent some time and actually did my hair. Like I woke up feeling really successful and I thought to myself like, well, that's because I'm talking about something that I feel so passionate about that really lights me up. So it was just like kind of an example of like feeling in that kind of signature of my type, how that had this like ripple effect into the rest of my life where I like got up earlier, got ready, ate a decent breakfast. I was going for a walk with my mom and sister and like all the kids. So like just way more kind of energized than what I've experienced a little bit lately, which on top of everything, you know, newborn, lack of sleep, all that kind of stuff. But it was just kind of a cool example of like what it felt like for me to like live in my signature. Okay. let's move on to the strategy for projectors is waiting for the invitation. So if you put yourself out there and force your advice or guidance onto those around you, your energy will be received poorly and rejected. So it's very common for projectors. Adele and I were kind of talking about this a little bit before we started the workshop, was like, when we both learned about human design, we wanted to like get on the rooftop and shout it out to everybody and make sure that everyone knew about this, because we felt like this will change your life and you need to know about it. And I've experimented with this like unsolicited advice thing, just like seeing clients, being a hairstylist. If someone sits in my chair and is like, I hear you talk about human design, like, what is that about? I'm like, well, thank you for the invitation. And would you like to spend the rest of your hair appointment talking about human design? Because I will. But if I am lit up by human design and I feel like, oh, I feel like this person should know about it, like I might be able to like throw it a little feeler and be like, have you heard about human design? And they're like, no. Like they just don't seem interested. But then if I continue to tell them anyways, like that's giving unsolicited advice. And usually, like for myself, and I don't know if it's because my spleen is my authority, which is like my intuition, I just know when that feels weird. It doesn't mean like I can listen to people talk, and in my brain I'm like, oh my God, I could so help them if I knew their birth time and I looked up their chart. I could look into this and like I bet you we could figure this out. But like if they haven't put that invitation out there for me to share that advice, it's going to be received poorly and I'm going to be left feeling really crappy about it. So usually like projectors, if they do that once, they figure out what it feels like. They don't want to do that again because it does not feel good. So when you are invited, then energy and guidance can give you like these incredible life-changing impacts on other people, which is just really amazing and what projectors are here to do. So again, that recognition and self-recognition are kind of like important parts of the strategy. So just kind of like recognizing that you have something to share and then having someone else recognize you, or it could come out as like, what are your thoughts on this? Or I've been wanting to ask you about this. Like those are invitations to share. Invitations don't always have to be verbal. They can kind of be like energy, a thought, or a feeling. So like that comes back to what I said before about human design being really all about just being connected to your body. If you're connected to your body, then you're connected to the parts of yourself that tell you like, I think someone wants you to share this. Like it gives you the ability to basically like use your intuition and like know when something feels right and when it doesn't. So waiting to be invited does not mean that you quiet your voice. If you're excited about something that affects you directly, voice it and share it. And I was telling Adele a little bit about this, which I've experimented with lately, is like when I first learned about needing to wait for invitations, it was really confusing because I was like, so what, I'm supposed to just sit around and wait all the time for like people to just come and ask me things? Like that doesn't seem right. Like, how am I going to be successful if I'm just waiting around for invitations all the time? But then my teacher said, waiting for an invitation means like more so when it comes to giving guidance, advice, sharing wisdom. When I've went on my social media, like I did last week, doing Instagram stories and talking about like, figuring out that my daughter's digestion was cold and how that just blew my mind, because when I tried to feed her a bottle and it was hot out, she wanted nothing to do with it. So I've been experimenting with like feeding her bottles on the cooler side, that her environment is mountains, and when she's cranky and you like put her over your shoulder and she can like see up, like kind of be up higher and see things, it's like, oh my God, that makes sense. Like she likes being at a high vantage point. So like I go on my Instagram, I share about these things, and I'm not like going on there trying to sell human design. I'm just like, this is fascinating, like I have to share this. Then I have all these people messaging me saying like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Like, I want to know more. I want to learn about my kids' stuff. So, like, that's an example of like not needing to quiet your voice, sharing about like what is directly affecting you and lighting you up. So, that was one example from last week. Um, and waiting for an invitation means that you must wait to be recognized and invited before initiating something with others or giving advice. I feel like this whole thing is just different ways to say the same thing. Like, you need to be invited, otherwise it feels yucky. And then just remembering that like you may be invited to share, but you get to decide what feels right to you. So like you may be getting invitations left, right, and center, and some of them just may not feel good. That's when you'll be tapping into using your authority to decide what feels good and what doesn't, when decision making is something you're doing. Okay, manifestors. So manifestors are also a non-energy type, making up 8% of the world's population. And manifestors are the only energy type that is meant to initiate. Manifestors can make things happen from nothing, which like really is kind of in the name. Like they can literally manifest anything from nothing. Manifestors are not here to be told what to do. And it is vital for a manifestor's health to prioritize having lots of rest. So similarly to the projector, going to bed at least an hour before they're tired, to unwind, read, journal, just kind of release all the energy that you've picked up throughout the day. The manifestor aura is closed and repelling, which means that other people can't always see what's going on inside of your head and why you do what you do. Your closed aura can kind of keep people away and actually allows space for you to like initiate from a place of peace. And that's the signature of a manifestor, is peace. So that alignment scale, when a manifestor is feeling like really aligned and they're living their type, their strategy, and their authority, they will feel at peace. When they are out of alignment and they're not self-theme, anger is what will often show up for a manifestor. So manifestors often are told at like a very young age that they're a lot, or that they're just like, manifestors have this like really big aura, and like they can be a lot, but like learning to like embrace their bigness and just like accepting that that's part of who they are is really, really, really important. And not worrying about other people liking them. That is the number one thing for manifestors, is to not shrink yourself to be accepted. Your life purpose has nothing to do with being liked by other people. So it's really important to just like own your bigness and not like shrink yourself down to fit into anyone's box and be liked by other people. You're supposed to just embrace how big and magical you are and not worry about anybody else. The strategy for the manifestor is to inform. So you remember when I was talking about generators, how they're not meant to inform, they're meant to respond. And that if they are trying to inform, oftentimes like things just won't be flowing, or things won't happen as quickly. That's because it's the manifestor strategy to inform. So they're here to impact others, and informing is a way to let those impacted by your actions prepare. So that's the biggest thing. It's like you need to inform those that will be affected by your actions to meet the least resistance when you do initiate and take action. So informing can improve your relationships, remove resistance, and create support for your power and creative energy to flow through you with ease. So basically that looks like, say you decide that you're going to take a trip and you're renting an apartment. It's important to inform your landlord that you're going to be away for 2 weeks so that they know you're not going to be there. It's important to call your mom and ask if she can look after your cat while you're away, instead of, last minute be like, well, someone has to look after my cat. If I let my mom know that this is what I'm doing, and that I need her help, that's kind of like informing. So you let the landlord know you're going, you let your mom know you need her to look after your cat, and then you book the flight. And things just kind of like flow with more ease. Where if you don't inform the people that are affected by your decision to book this trip and go away for 2 weeks, then maybe something happens that the price skyrockets, or the flight gets canceled, or there's a hurricane or something like that. Like there could be all these different things that could happen that may interrupt your trip being amazing if you don't first inform the people that are affected by this decision for you to go away for a couple weeks. So that's just kind of like one example on like what informing looks like. Just because your strategy is to inform, this does not mean that you need to stop or change what you're doing. So that doesn't mean you're asking for permission. If something feels right to you, do it, but just inform the people who are being affected and just letting them know what to expect. When you inform those who may be affected by your actions or what you're working on manifesting, you're also letting them in on your desires so that they can send good vibrations and frequencies to your manifestation. So this like really amplifies a manifestor's power. Is like if you're manifesting a trip somewhere and you let everyone know, like, hey, I'm planning on going on this trip for 2 weeks, like I'm really hoping that things work out and I can get everything lined up to go on this trip. And then someone's like, oh, that sounds really awesome. Like, I think that would be so good for you. Now, like your friends, because they want that success and that excitement and satisfaction for you in your life, they're now putting their energy into like positively kind of bringing that manifestation to life. So that's why it's not just important to inform people so that if they're going to be affected by your decision, they know about it, but like informing people that are like kind of your little cheerleaders that can help whatever you're working on like really become successful is just like so powerful. You just have this like whole cheerleading squad behind you helping you get what you want in life. And lastly, we have the reflectors. I just need to take a drink. So reflectors are our last non-energy type, and they make up 1% of the world's population. I have had the pleasure of meeting one reflector in the past 3 years, which was so cool. She attended my Gates workshop, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like I've been reading now for like 2 years, known about human design for 3 years, never met a projector. I do have a friend who has a projector daughter. She's a friend, but like I've only met her in person a few times. Like I don't actually know her daughter to really like understand her personality, but I've been able to like kind of ask my friend questions about like what is it like parenting a reflector. But yeah, I've only actually got to meet one in person, and it was just so cool having the conversation with her because she was like, this changed my life, just learning that I was a reflector and why I was so different from the rest of my family was such a gift for her, because she was like, I always just thought I was weird, that there was like something wrong with me, that I was weird. I was just like the misfit, the black sheep, but like learning she was a reflector just like gave her full permission to just be her and a little bit more understanding, compassion, and grace for herself too. So reflectors are called the unicorns of human design. So basically it's like because they're so rare and magical. Reflectors have a sampling aura because they have no defined centers. So that means that like in all of their energy centers, they're constantly like taking in information from everyone else. And it is an opportunity to reflect others back to them, reflect others' energy to them so that they can kind of like sample the energy that they're putting out. Reflectors are extremely sensitive to their environment and the needs of the people around them and their community. So they literally are a reflection or a mirror of the health and well-being of the people that they're closest to, the environment, the community. And if they are in an incorrect environment for a long period of time, they can kind of take on the vibration and the energy of that environment and can become physically ill from being in an environment doesn't feel good to them. And reflectors are just extremely, extremely sensitive and empathetic beings because they have so much openness in their chart. They're just literally feeling everything else from everybody else all the time. So it's a lot for them. And I feel like if I was kind of hoping I had a reflector child, even though I knew it would be challenging because of all of this openness. I guess like there's just this part of me that was like, oh, it'd be so cool if she was a reflector. But also like I feel like if you do have a reflector child, like just knowing that they are so empathetic and so sensitive could be just like such a gift as a parent to just have that understanding for them and compassion for them as like not only your child but this like little human being that's trying to like figure the world out. So yeah, I think they're pretty cool. So the strategy for reflectors is to wait a lunar cycle. So waiting a lunar cycle before making a decision. And when I'm talking about making decision, I'm talking about like big life decisions. Like simple things like, oh, where are you going to go for dinner tonight? Like doesn't necessarily apply that you need to wait 29 and a half days to make that choice. But reflectors may be kind of influenced in their decision making depending on who they're with at the time. So say I was hanging out with a friend who is a reflector, which I don't have any friends who are reflectors. But say I did, and we were hanging out and I really wanted to go out for sushi, but I thought, well, I'll ask her. Clearly I'm craving sushi. I brought it up a few times tonight. I'll ask her what she wants to do. And she's just like, oh, like, I don't know. And I say, like, I really like sushi. Then she was like, okay, she might just kind of go along with what I'm saying because my spleen, which is my intuition, says, oh, you need to go for sushi tonight. Like, I've been craving it. It's just like a very quick spur of the moment, like in the moment feeling, the spleen. And then we go and she's fine with it because like when her and I are together and my energy is affecting her energy. So like I think it's important to understand that reflectors just kind of flow in and out of just being so many different things. And like some people could view that as like, oh, they just never know what they want, or they're constantly changing their mind, or like they're not consistent. But like that's just what it is to be a reflector. Is like you're kind of like this little chameleon that can like change and evolve depending on who you're around, which also is like very important for reflectors, the same as projectors and manifestors, going to bed super early, giving themselves lots of downtime, lots of rest to like get rid of. It's important for projectors and manifestors because the sacral is open, but for reflectors, everything is open. So it's really, really, really important for like lots of alone time so that they can really just like connect with their own bodies and figure out what it is that they want, as opposed to when they're around other people, they're being influenced by them and just picking up on everyone else's stuff all the time. So alone time, super important. So because reflectors don't have any definition, means that reflectors do not have an authority. So during the month, there's a good chance if you're a reflector that you have spent some time around a generator, a manifesting generator, a projector, and a manifester, and you're just like sampling everyone else's aura all the time. So you need time alone to kind of figure out what is energetically correct for you, especially when it comes to making those big decisions. Because during that lunar cycle, if you've been in contact with all the different types, you need that time by yourself to really just kind of like figure out what feels good to you. Giving yourself lots of time and space before jumping into big decisions. That's where like the 29 and a half days of the lunar cycle comes into play. And the reason why it's so important is that you get to taste the energy of all the other authorities while you're going through the transit. So the transit meaning like the activations in the body graph throughout the month. So it's kind of like all about just like that 29 and a half days where the moon is like cycling around the earth, that you have been in contact with all these different authorities. And then you've had time to kind of like think about this decision from all these different angles and perspectives. Okay, so now we have covered all 5 of the energy types and their strategies. So next, what we're going to get into is authority. And this is kind of like that last piece in the big 3. So authority is kind of like your inner compass. So like I said earlier in the workshop, none of us are meant to make decisions based on our heads. We all have a certain part of our bodies that is the area that we are meant to kind of connect with when we're making decisions. And this applies to like little tiny decisions like, what do you want to do today? Where do you want to go for dinner? Stuff like that, to like moving across the country, changing jobs, buying a house. So like small decisions and big decisions. So a majority of the population has solar plexus as their authority. So that is this triangle to the right of, like on the right side of the body graph. So remember how I talked about manifesting generators and generators having their sacral defined. So if you are a man gen or a generator, you have that sacral energy, which means that you use those yes or no kind of sacral responses. But if your authority is your solar plexus, you also are meant to use your solar plexus when making those big decisions. So you can make decisions in the moment with that yes or no, but when it's time to make a big decision, you need to tap into that solar plexus. And yesterday, so I had a client yesterday who is a hair client, but is going through fertility treatments. And I went through fertility treatments myself. So we tend to always just kind of talk about like where she's at in her journey. And so yesterday, I didn't even do her human design, but I was like, I guarantee that you are a solar plexus authority. I don't know what her type is, but I just knew it. So her and her husband are going away on a trip to celebrate their first anniversary, and they leave on Saturday. They're going to be gone for.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm going to mute you. I was like, what? They leave on Saturday and are gone for like 5 days. And then she was supposed to go for this like test the day that she got back. And she was really stressing about going for this test because she just felt like she would have anxiety during this vacation and was like stressed about having to come home and have this test done. So when she first got the phone call, she was like, yes, I want to go for this test, like, because it would be the next step in her journey to like figure out what's going on with her fertility. And then, so that was the day before. So she was here yesterday, which was Wednesday. So Tuesday, she was like, yes, I want to do this test. Yesterday, she comes in and she's just like, oh my God, I'm just like, I have so much anxiety. All I'm thinking about is like the fact that I'm going to go on this trip and I'm going to try and enjoy myself, but I'm going to know, like, I know that I have to come back and have this testing done, and it's just going to be stressful. And I just don't want to think about it. We booked this trip and I just wanted to go away and not think about fertility and babies. I just want to enjoy time with my husband. And so she was on the, like, no, I should cancel this appointment. Like, I don't want to do it. And so I kind of talked her through it, and like instantly was like, she is riding what we call for solar plexus authority is the emotional wave. So she's riding the emotional wave. So I kind of went through the pros and cons with her and was like, okay, I wouldn't suggest that you skip this test for very long, because had the same testing done. It basically looks at to see if your fallopian tubes are open or not. So I had it done a couple times, and I had it done, and then I had surgery, and then for a year didn't have it done again because I was just like, oh, the surgery worked. Like, I just want to conceive naturally and blah, blah, blah. And then ended up going for the test again and realizing, like, oh, your fallopian tube's actually blocked. So for an entire year, every month, I was hopeful and then disappointed when we weren't getting pregnant. But all along, this physical thing was happening that was preventing me from actually getting pregnant. So I was like, you don't want to like put doing the test off for too long, because if you do, then you could spend a whole year of like hope and disappointment, and that sucks. So you want to do it soon. But I was like, what if you just skip it till next month? Like, you don't have to like not do this test for 6 months, but what about going next month and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, you don't need to know all these details. Sorry, I tend to make like short stories long sometimes, so I apologize. Basically, what happened was Tuesday, she was like in the high of the decision. Wednesday, she was in the low of the decision. And today I got a text from her saying, thank you for talking through that with me yesterday. I decided to cancel the test and do it next month. And now I feel like my shoulders literally relax, and I just feel so much pressure off, and I can go and enjoy my vacation. And I was like, oh, good, I'm glad that worked out. So she rode the emotional wave for 3 days. And that is what solar plexus authorities do. You feel the high, you feel the low, and then when you get to a place of neutral, you can make a decision. So today, after feeling the highs, feeling the lows, getting to neutral, having some time to think this through and digest it, she made the decision. So in a very long story short, that is what riding an emotional wave is. Now, if you have emotional authority, try like for some people, like there's a 3-day rule. Like, it's like when big decisions come into play, you need 3 days to think about them. And it's okay to say to people, like, can I have a couple days to sleep on this? One of my good friends is an emotional authority. And when she learned this, she was like, oh my gosh, like, oftentimes, like, I feel this pressure to like make this decision right now and let this person know. But learning this about her has given her permission to say, can I get back to you in a couple days? And like, who's going to be like, no, I need to know right now? Most people are going to be like, yeah, sure. She takes a couple days, she feels it all out, and then she gives a decision that feels aligned for her. There is no truth in the now for emotional authority. So like, when I ask you a question and you're, whether you're just like, ew, no, I don't want to do that, and then later are like, well, maybe I kind of do. When you make a decision in the now, it's often like not going to be the truth. You're just making it based on that impulse of like whatever's going on in that moment. So like, even if it's just like you need an hour to make a decision, or you need 15 minutes to think through the highs and the lows and then get to neutral, giving yourself some version of time is super, super important. So kind of like playing around with like, maybe your emotional wave is 3 days long, maybe it's only 2 days or 24 hours. And then you can like try this with small decisions. So like waiting 5 minutes, maybe sleeping on a decision, or maybe if it's like a huge life-changing decision, you need a whole week to decide something, and that is okay. So that's kind of part of the deconditioning of human design, is like, if you have your solar plexus as your authority, good chance that you already kind of feel like you need time to make decisions, but the pressure from society or other people. I'm a splenic authority, and we're going to talk about that, 2 authorities from now, and I can make a decision really quick right now. And so someone with a splenic authority who's hanging out with someone who it needs to ride their emotional wave, a splenic authority may put pressure on an emotional authority to like make a decision now, because that's what's easy for me. So then if we're not aware of human design, other people's uniqueness, then we could easily pressure other people into, kind of like making decisions that are out of alignment with them, or not giving them the time and space to make those choices. So that is like, this is why I find this so fascinating. So the second most common authority is the sacral. So the sacral, which we've talked about a little bit, is making decisions following your gut and trusting it. So it's in that moment like hell yes, hell no. Responding by listening to your gut for those or sounds. And then like I said before with generators, so like this will feel a little bit repetitive because we talk about the sacral so much with generators and manifesting generators that like if this is your authority as well, like it's just the sacral is the most important energy center for those generator types. So listening to those sacral sounds, having people ask you yes or no questions, or those like this or that questions so that you can connect with your sacral. Then I talked a little bit already about like how at such a young age it's kind of like taught to be rude if you're using like and so like if you catch yourself, like you may catch yourself saying that now and you can be like, oh, I'm waking up those sacral sounds instead of like, well, that feels weird saying but like it's just so natural for generator types to use those terms. And this was kind of me putting my own spin on it because I do a lot of like fertility work with fertility clients and women in general, connecting with like your womb space. So it's like the sacred feminine center of intuition, wisdom, insight. So like kind of connecting with like that part of you, like your womanhood, and just seeing like what it feels like to like have that really intimate one-on-one relationship with your own body, your own menstrual cycle. So like kind of honoring and nurturing that relationship with your womb could be really nourishing for you as well. And like waiting, receiving that gut response, trusting the gut response. So that's like, we've talked a bit about like giving yourself permission. This is an example as a generator or a manifesting generator, because even if your sacral is not your authority, you have definition in your sacral. So knowing that this is part of like your energetic makeup can just give you that ability and permission to like, when you have a gut feeling, trust that gut feeling, because you're meant to operate from your gut. You're meant to make decisions from your gut. So just like trusting that gut has the right choice for you is just like one more area that you're given permission to trust that part of your body. So then we have the spleen. So the spleen speaks softly once and is done. So nourishing your body and keeping it healthy is a great way to stay in tune with your spleen. And when I was like working on the workshop, I was like, oh, I so needed this reminder of like, you know, how important it is to like eat well and drink lots of water and just like treating my body with so much love. Because if I'm feeding it with like sugar and junk and like heavy foods, like it's really hard to just like feel connected with my body. Therefore, like there's this disconnect between me and my authority. So just knowing that that's super important. If you're a splenic or splenic, the spleen communicates in the moment. So it's kind of like a spontaneous ping or an inner knowing. It's often for splenic authorities that you will kind of be like just claircognizant, which is basically just having this like inner knowing that can't be tied to logic. It's like, I don't know why I know this or why this feels good, but I just know. You can't really define it or explain it. It's just this inner knowing. So it's crucial for splenic authority to stay in the present moment, be deeply in tune with your body and its signals. So meditating daily is really beneficial. So is like journaling, which is just kind of like a way to connect with your intuition and assist you in feeling like just really connected with the body and those quiet whispers of your soul. So splenic authority has a subtle yet very reliable intuition and instincts that you must use to make decisions in the moment. What may be energetically correct for you now may not be correct for you tomorrow, and that's okay. So that's one important thing to remember if you have splenic authority, is like, because it's so in the moment and it's just like this quick decision, like what feels good in the moment today may not be what feels good tomorrow. And so that's like giving yourself permission to like change your mind. If today you were like, yeah, I really want to do that. Like, say someone asked you if you wanted to go to the beach in a couple days, and you're like, yeah, I do. But then a couple days comes and you're like, oh my gosh, like I just need a day at home. Like, even though the beach would be relaxing, like I have to put in a lot of work before we even get to the beach. That is just like too much for me to take on today. Like, giving yourself permission to like let somebody know, listen, like that felt really good a couple days ago, but today it doesn't feel good anymore. So like I just need this time home or whatever. So permission to like change your mind is really important, because we tend to think that when we've said yes to something, like we're committed to it and we need to follow through. If we're not following through, then it means like we're flighty, or we're just like, you know, all over the place. And it really just means yesterday that felt good and today it doesn't. And I'm just going to honor my body and my needs in this moment. So giving yourself the freedom to change your mind and go a different direction if you choose. And that will also lead you to being in the right places for divine timing to play out in your life. So listening to those quiet whispers and being okay with changing your mind literally could lead you to like correct invitations when it feels right to you. Like, even when Adele first reached out to me to do a like an Instagram live and talk about human design, instantly I was like, yes, I want to do it. But at the time I was pregnant and exhausted and trying to like finish up working and get ready for a baby and birth and stuff. And so like I had said yes, and then we tried to like make something work and we just couldn't figure it out. And then it just kind of became a no, because timing in my life just didn't work anymore. But then when she reached out to me like a few weeks ago, it was just like, yes, I was ready for it. It felt like the right time. So, you know, learning that like something can be a yes today, and then life situations happen, and then it cannot feel like a yes for a while. And maybe you come back to it. So this was an example of like Adele providing this invitation that at the time I was saying yes to. And then for a while I had to say no. And then I could come back to it when the timing was right. Because if I would have said, well, I said yes, I made that commitment, I need to follow through, and I was like exhausted, very pregnant, very swollen, very just like struggling to function in the day to day, and then showed up anyways because I felt like, well, I said I was going to do this, I need to follow through with this commitment. Maybe there would have only been like 2 people here at the workshop tonight. Instead, we have like what, 10 or more in total that have like invested their time and their money into learning about this. So it's like figuring out what energetically feels right at the time is very important, and being okay with changing your mind. So then we have a couple more, well, 3 more authorities that are way less common. So like I have a friend who is a self-projected projector, and then next we're going to talk about mental projectors, and her son is a mental projector. But other than her and her son, out of all the readings I've done, they're the only 2. So these are much more rare, but really kind of cool authorities. So self-projected projector is when the G center, which is this like diamond in the middle, in like, if you're familiar with like Reiki, the chakras, stuff like that, you would think of this as kind of like the heart center or the heart chakra. So the G center is connected to the throat, which is right here. And you need to hear yourself speaking out loud to make decisions. It's important for you to have safe people in your community that you can bounce your thoughts off of, so you can listen to what you're saying. So it's just really important to have safe people who understand your boundaries and understand that you need a safe place to hear yourself speak. And that's how you make your correct decisions for yourself. So I think it's important, if you are a self-projected projector, to make sure that whoever you're feeling safe with, that you're needing to like talk something through, that they know that you just need them to hold space for you. You're not looking for them to give you advice. You're not looking for them to help solve like anything. Actually, yesterday I had a friend say to me, because this client that was the fertility client that was here, I was feeling like, oh, like, am I giving her more advice than she's asking for? I was really trying to like tap into my strategy and use my authority to figure out, like, I think that she's inviting me to like share a little bit about what my experience was like doing fertility treatments and stuff. But she wasn't like saying it out loud, like, tell me what your thoughts were, but energetically I thought I could feel it. And I remember a friend saying to me before, it's helpful to ask someone if in the moment they want to be helped, heard, or hugged. And I was like, oh my God, like, I remembered that yesterday and just thought, like, that's exactly like, so I asked her that. I was like, you know what? I apologize if I have given you advice and you have not asked for it. And instantly she was like, no, I wanted you to give me advice. I was like, okay. I thought I felt it, but I wasn't sure because you weren't saying it with your words. So then I started to question it. But she was like, I want to be helped, heard, and hugged right now. So that was kind of like a cool thing, because sometimes people don't want help, they just want to be heard. So I think remembering that, especially if you're a self-projected projector, like letting people in your life know, like, right now, I just need you to hold space for me, because I even catch myself doing this and I'm not a self-projected projector. I just need to like talk through something out loud to figure it out. And then when I've said it out loud, I come up with my own answers, and it's like, oh, okay. That's all I needed, was just to like say it out loud. So you can speak out loud into your phone and like just record it. It's a way, of like getting whatever thoughts are going on kind of like in your brain out on paper. And I actually recommend this to like anybody who just like, especially, this is your head center in the body graph. If you have this open, that means that you're like taking on information from other people all the time, which means you're not really sure like which thoughts are yours and which are other people's. So like just writing those thoughts down to kind of like brain dump, they call it, like kind of brain dump onto the paper, can be really beneficial. So it's a very in the moment authority. So listening to what you're saying in the moment, and that's where your truth lies. And something, I went on this like little exploration, because I was like, this to me is like the heart chakra, the heart center, but like, why is it called the G center? So I went on a mission to figure out what the G even means, and I found a whole bunch of interpretations. So like the gift center, the goddess center, the geomagnetic center, the Gaia center, guru center, gravity center, God or galactic portal, and guide center. So the idea is to kind of like figure out what resonates with you and just kind of go from there. And we have environmental authority, which is mental projectors. So if you're a mental projector, that means that you either have your head center or your ajna center defined, or your head, ajna, and throat. So no definition below the throat. So like you may have these three centers defined, but all of these are white. So this means that your environment is really important to you because you have so much openness below your throat. If the environment that you're in is wrong, then the people that you're around are wrong. So this will kind of help guide you to make right decisions. So like if you're in an environment that feels like really calm and safe and good to you, then good chance the people in that environment also feel that way. But if you're in an environment or around people that like just kind of don't make you feel good, then it's like you're not going to make decisions that are in alignment with yourself if you're in those environments. So then find a new place that feels right is kind of the suggestion. Get into an environment that feels good to you, especially when you're making big decisions. You're taking in information from all that openness that you have in your design, and the mind is powerful and wants to question everything. So really feeling into the environment, you're going to get clarity on the correct decisions for you. Because like, even though I said none of us are meant to make decisions from our minds, we're meant to use a different energy center for mental projectors, even though that like head center is the definition and where they get their authority from, it really is more about their environment than actually using their mind. So making sure they're in a safe and an environment that feels supportive. And lastly, we have lunar authorities. So reflectors are the only type to have a lunar authority because they don't have any definition in their chart. So reflectors have all these energy centers are open. So during the lunar cycle, which is 29.5 days, the transiting energy will allow you to feel and sample all the other 6 authorities to get information from each authority so that you can come to the right decision for you. So it's kind of like I said before, where the reflectors are sampling like the energy from a projector and a generator and a manifesting generator and manifestor throughout the month. They're also kind of like sampling what it would be like to be in that authority. So, you know, the example I gave about like me and a reflector deciding on where to go for dinner, I'm using my spleen and saying like, oh, let's go for sushi. They're like, okay, so they were sampling what it was like to make a decision based on being splenic authority. If they were around a generator that was, you know, kind of answering that yes or no question with their sacral, they're sampling what it's like to do that. So it's really important for lunar authorities to just like take that full lunar cycle to make those big decisions. And something that also could be really beneficial is tracking the transits when making a decision. So there's something in human design called like the wheel of the year. And basically that shows like what throughout the entire 365 days, all of the 64 gates in human design spend a certain amount of time in the earth and like the moon and sun during that. Well, I think it's more the sun actually that it goes by. So during the 29.5 days, like looking into like what gate are we in right now and like what energy does that kind of apply to things. This is like honestly next level human design. It's like pretty complex, but if you were a projector or sorry, a reflector and you had lunar authority, it would be super, super beneficial for you to follow the transits, knowing like what energy is affecting the world right now, and just like being aware of that and how you can like kind of harness that energy for goodness and for your own benefit is like really beneficial. So yeah, like obviously you're not going to use that lunar authority when making a decision like where you're going for dinner, but just like knowing that with lunar authority it's very important to be aware of their environment. So being in environments that feel good help you to make decisions about where you want to go for dinner or if you want to go on that day trip with a friend or not. So if you're out somewhere and the environment or the table doesn't feel right, like have no shame in asking to like move to a different table. If you're just like, for me, being like in the middle of a restaurant, like in a table feels horrible. Like, I would want to like, I tend to say like, if there's a booth, I'd love a booth. Like I'm also a cave environment. So being in that kind of like closed in space of a booth feels a lot safer to me, especially if my back's to the wall than like being out in the open in the middle. So if, you know, say a reflector was with me out for dinner and that is how I feel best in a restaurant, maybe they would be picking up on that kind of energy from me where it's like, yeah, no, I want to be in a booth, and we could, you know, ask to be moved so that I feel best, the reflector friend feels good, and then we can both enjoy ourselves. Okay. that basically wraps up type, strategy, and authority. I feel like I'm going to wake up with a sore throat tomorrow from talking so much because I feel like I have not stopped for like an hour and a half. But definitely feeling really lit up and excited that I've been able to share this information with you all. So something to remember is, I said this earlier and I'll say it again, human design is an experiment. Please use this information in this class as a guide. It's not meant to be black and white or linear. You are the leader of your own life, and it is up to you to take what resonates from this and leave what does not. I encourage you to return to it often. Look at your chart all the time. Look up your kids and your partners and your friends and your coworkers, and just like, understanding how other people operate and just having more compassion for who they are as unique human beings and who you are as a unique human being is just like the whole purpose of human design. So one of the reasons that I fell in love with it was because it made me feel seen and understood in a way that no other system has made me feel, which I did mention earlier. But it's worth repeating. I began to view my traits and characteristics for what they were and accept them as my unique gifts rather than seeing them as something negative that I needed to change. That is the gift of human design in itself. The system has given me the gift of loving and accepting myself exactly as I am. And that is my wish for all of you as well. So I hope that you enjoy the ride of experimentation. And if you want to know more, you can visit my website. Usually I have like online booking, but I closed it for like while I've been on mat leave and just haven't got it rolling again. But if having a one-on-one reading and kind of diving more into like your energy centers, your profile, your gates, your channels, your arrows, your digestion and environment, stuff like that, you can follow me on Instagram and message me through there. I have a Facebook page as well. And I believe both of those areas and my website has like my phone number that you can call or text, and my email as well. So there's lots of ways to get in touch with me if you would like to learn more about your human design. I also do this offering called the Sacred Energy Manual. So basically it's like taking your chart and dissecting the whole thing, and I make it into this like beautiful manual that I can like send to you PDF and you can print out. And I've actually gifted it to a lot of my friends for like their birthdays and stuff. And it's been a really cool kind of thing to share. It's like basically taking your whole chart and dissecting it. And yeah, it's just kind of a cool thing to have that you can constantly be looking back on. So that is all I have for this evening. I hope you've enjoyed it, and you'll have the recording because Adele will be sending them out whenever they download. And then you can rewatch it as many times as you want and just kind of keep reminding yourself of this information, even if you have to put little post-it notes up of like what your type, strategy, and authority is, just to remind you to like kind of follow that as much as possible and try and live your life in alignment with that. And you'll just find that things just flow better, and things, you become more magnetic and just feeling more in that signature part of yourself as opposed to those not self themes. So okay, I'm going to stop talking now.
Thank you so much for that, Tasha. That is just, even I learn something new every time. And when you get to learn about all the different types as well, it helps so much. Then when you do come across those people, or if your friends or your family are those types as well, then it's just so much more helpful to be able to like interact with them and just understand them better. So yes, thank you so much for your time tonight. Are you actually able to make me the host again so I can just pull up my notes quickly here? Yeah, so I hope you guys got so much out of that. And honestly, this is just scratching the surface. Like, there is so much more to human design. Like, if you're looking at your charts, you're probably seeing different lines and colors and numbers and symbols, and you might be wondering like, what is this? But there is just so much more to it. So I hope this is just the beginning for you and your journey into human design and kind of learning a little bit more about it. So I thought maybe at this point we could just like open it up. I didn't see any actual questions in the chart, but if any of you have questions or want to ask a little bit more about your chart, or you want some clarification on anything that was said, or, you know, maybe some examples, or if you have kids and you want some tips, the floor is yours. Does anybody have anything? Is there anything that really stood out or was maybe like, wow, that makes total sense for me? Knowing your chart now and your type and your strategy and authority.
I thought it was really cool that all three, like myself, my husband, and my son, are all emotional solar plexus, but my daughter's sacral. And it totally makes sense. I need to learn more about it for sure, but yeah.
Oh, something that I didn't mention tonight, but we did talk about in the live last week is like, okay, so is your daughter a manifesting generator? Okay. So, if you're a generator to any of the types, if you have your solar plexus defined, that automatically makes it your authority. Because like the authorities kind of have like a ranking of like highest kind of down. So like solar plexus is number one, then sacral, then splenic, and then we kind of go from there, the G center, the head, stuff like that. So Addie having her sacral as her authority means that her solar plexus is open. And we had talked about this last week because one of Adele's sons has an open solar plexus. And open solar plexus people amplify other people's emotions. So like Josh, myself, and Luna Ray all have open solar plexuses. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be interesting, because what happens is like, if I am upset, then Josh is going to think that I'm like downright pissed off, because he takes in me being like a little bit upset and like amplifies it. So knowing that about your daughter, like I'm guessing that she is like really sensitive. And like if you're like a little bit mad, she's like, she thinks that you are so angry with her, and that like devastates her, or she just like takes that energy and just like makes it so much bigger than it needs to be, which can obviously like for emotional reasons like escalate a situation in a direction that is like, whoa, this did not have to get this big. So yeah, that I found really interesting.
She's definitely like the amplifier of all emotions. So, yes, we have to redirect that child often in a day. I can't say anything negative if she's already like in a negative spot, because it's just like, oh,
Yeah.
that amplified really quick.
Yep. Any more questions? I know it's a lot of it. When I do readings, they're usually like, you know, about 45 minutes or so, but like by the end, I literally can see the person's face being like, oh my gosh, like, what do I do with all this information? Or like you may think of questions later, and feel free to like I said, on my website and my social media pages, there's all the ways that you can get in touch with me, and even Adele, like feel free to like reach out and ask if you have questions later, because you may just need some time to like digest this and like figure it all out before you actually have questions. So that's okay too.
If you have a 1 in your profile, you may want to go and just like start researching everything and reading everything about this, and like just trying to find everything you can about human design. That is typical of, I think it's the 1, right? That is the investigator. They just want to know everything about everything, and have all the details. So if you have a 1 in your chart, if that speaks to you, let me know. But so if you are wanting to go like a little bit deeper, kind of like what's next, some really cool like components of the human design chart that I really love is the profile. So looking into your profile, like that kind of like those two numbers at the top of your chart with the slash, the channels, the gates, your centers. That's also going to give you so much more insight and so much more clarity and just more, information about yourself. And I highly, highly, highly recommend listening to podcasts. I don't know about you, but I have a bit of a commute to work and I listen to podcasts, and the Human Design podcast with Emma Dunbody is like phenomenal. So look up, episodes that relate to your chart, to your authority or your type or different gates that you have defined, and just start like listening and you'll pick up so many things. It's really, really cool. So that's a really good podcast, as well as You Do Woo, like WOO. That's another really great one. And just find episodes that relate to your chart, and yeah, you can learn so much about that. So if
I
we
have another thing. I just
Yeah.
kind of remember this because so a friend and myself, so like we both took the human design reader training together. We actually have a podcast. It is on Spotify and I think Apple. Definitely it's on Spotify. It's called the Aligned and Embodied Podcast. So my friend Alicia Preston, she's like a mindfulness facilitator. She does a lot of work with oh my gosh, what's it called? The Stuart Shanker self-regulation. She was an EA. So she does a lot of work with like educators and mindfulness. So like her and I just kind of combined our love for human design and started a podcast together. And we were very like just kind of recorded whenever we were inspired to. So I think there's like maybe like 5 or 6 episodes, and we've talked so many times about like getting back into it and doing it again because we do really love it. But there is a few episodes up there if you want to listen to us talk some more.
Awesome.
Or me talk some more.
Yeah, awesome. And yeah, you like finding accounts on Instagram, like there's so much free information out there too, like that you can just start to get to know a little bit more. And I just think it's so cool. And human design is actually becoming a little bit more mainstream. You're hearing more and more people talk about it. Like I had first kind of heard about it and stumbled upon it like 3 years ago now. And a lot of people now know like what's your type, if you bring it up. So there's just so much more out there now, so much more information. And I just think it would be so cool if like teachers could know, what their students' charts look like. Or even for me, I mean, I'm a parole officer in a men's prison. Like if I could just be like, tell me what's your chart, what's your type, like maybe we can get you situated here. But I just think it would be so cool to know what other people are, because it's just so helpful. So as Tasha mentioned, the recording will be available for everyone. So I will get that set up. It might take a little bit to like download. So just give me a little bit of time, but I will send that out to everybody. And then we will also be announcing the winner of the draw for the free chart reading with Tasha. So that's really exciting. So one of you is going to have a personal chart reading. But yeah, so I just want to thank you all again for registering and joining us tonight and learning more about human design. And I hope you all learned something that you can take away and apply to your life. And yeah, I hope you all have a good night.